Hello everybody, and welcome to a in-depth tutorial on how to draw vectors from the show My Little Pony. I'm going to be breaking up this tutorial into several different segments and smaller videos so I can make this as painless as possible for all of us. Starting right off, this is our first segment, which is going to be just setting up Adobe Illustrator, Creative Cloud 2014, and putting our vectors, or the image we're going to be tracing our vector from, into Adobe. So hopefully that you're here, you've already made that first important step in deciding that you want to draw vectors. Congratulations, thank you very much for coming and watching this video, I appreciate it. So now that you know you want to draw a vector, you have to find an interesting pose or a character that you like that you would want to draw. So to do that, more than likely you're going to have to watch My Little Pony. And so to do that, you just open one of your internet browsers. For example, I know Internet Explorer, it's terrible, at least that's what everyone tells me. But I have Dailymotion open here to episode 60, Apple Family Reunion. And if we watch this episode, we're not actually going to watch the whole thing, just the very first few seconds of it. And I'm just going to give you an example of exactly how I capture my pictures that I use for my vectors. Yes, thank you very much, Applejack. Alright, so we have our video set up, and for example, if you like the expression that Applejack is making right now, you could actually take a screenshot of Applejack and save that for a later date. So we're going to do that now just so I can give you a good example of how I do things. First of all, before we take this picture, you need to realize when you're doing screen captures for your vectors, they have to be as highest quality available that you can find. Now, for a lot of the older seasons, up until I think season 4, the highest quality I can find seems to be 720, which is still HD, which is good. But preferably, if you can find 1080, use 1080. However, 720 works for me. So what you're going to do is go ahead and open up your screen capture device. If you have Windows 7, there's something called the snipping tool that comes with Windows 7. So you can just open that up, pops up a window, and all you have to do is click and drag over your screen, and it captures the whole thing or whatever you drug over. Now, we don't want to use this, obviously, because there's a lot of other things we don't need in this picture. So I'm just going to close that, say no, I don't want to save it. Going to open up, not the snipping tool quite yet. You want to go ahead and put it to full screen mode, and make sure again that your quality is as high as you can possibly get it. Alt tab out, go to your snipping tool, Alt tab back, and switch back to snipping tool, click new, then you can click and drag and get an entire full screenshot of whatever pose you wanted to draw. So I'm actually going to go ahead and save this, and I'm going to put it under my references. I have tons of references folders. We'll put this under AJ, even though Granny Smith is in here too, and name it AJ Granny, just because. So we have that saved on our computer and able to be imported into Adobe Illustrator now. So go ahead and close it, exit out of your internet browser. I'm just going to minimize. And let's go ahead and open up Adobe Illustrator. Now, I'm not actually going to be drawing that screenshot I just took. I actually want to draw one of these here. I took several shots from that same episode of the Apple family sitting together, Applejack, Granny Smith, and Apple Bloom. Now, as you can see here, I have 3 different shots of pretty much the same setting. The reason I do this is, personally, I often like to make variations on the poses I find in the show to make them more unique to myself, and I don't accidentally recreate vectors that other people have already done. Now, it's good to get, if you're going to take multiple shots to try to do that, this is more an advanced technique, so you might not have to worry about it, but if you do decide to do this, you want to make sure that the zoom is about the same. You notice this is almost exactly the same amount of zoom, they're just changing pose slightly so that you could splice these together. For example, if you wanted to have AJ's head up a little bit higher, as you can see in this shot, but you wanted her to have that half-closed eye look to her. You could trace the half-closed eyes in this shot and put it on this one. And actually, this is all of them blinking, in case you didn't know. A really nice way to get different eye poses from the show is to pause rapidly and get them in the middle of a blink, and you get some really cool effects with their eyes. The other shot I have here, which is actually the one I'm going to be teaching you how to draw, is of Applejack right here. I like how her head's kind of tilted down slightly, and I'm going to utilize this shot, this screen capture right here for our tutorial. So, now that we've decided which screenshot we're going to be using for a tutorial, we can go back to Illustrator. So you have Adobe Illustrator open. We're going to go to File, New. And you can title it now if you want, but you don't have to. We will go ahead and name it a while. We'll call this Tutorial. And check what your size is for your new document. You want it to be either 1280 by 720 or 1920 by 1080, because those are your two HD qualities, quote unquote. I did 1280 by 720 because that is what we got our capture from, was a 720 HD video. Also, very important, make sure your color mode is always going to be either RGB or CMYK. You have to choose one or the other, and try to keep that uniform throughout all your vectors, throughout all your documents that you do. Because if, for example, you want to take something from one document that is in RGB color mode and put in another one that has to be CMYK, and you move it over, it's going to completely mess up with your colors, and it's going to look bad. It's just going to look bad. There is a way to fix it in case you've already done that, and I will probably go over that at a later time. But for now, let's just go ahead and create this, and it pops up our artboard that we have here. Now that we have our artboard ready to go, we're going to go to File, Place, and import the vectors, excuse me, the screen captures that we want to use for our vectors. Now, I want to give you an example of what importing multiple pictures at once looks like. You can just select one. You don't have to do what I do. But, for example, you select all the pictures you want to import, you hit Place, and you see how it says 1 out of 3. 1/3 for our pictures. This is because I'm placing the first of my 3 pictures. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out using Alt and the scroll wheel. Place 1, 2, 3. Control scroll wheel moves back and forth. So remember that. Control scroll wheel, excuse me, holding Control and using your mouse scroll button, if you have one, hopefully you do, will allow you to scroll back from side to side. Holding Alt and scrolling will allow you to zoom in and back, and then not holding anything while scrolling is up and down. These are very helpful, in my opinion. Instead of having to go to the zoom tool over here, you can just maneuver about your artboard with ease. So I'm going to go ahead and move these out of the way. Now, first, before we even get started here, I want you to set up something that'll help you a lot when you're drawing your vectors. If you go ahead and go to View, notice first of all that I have Snap to Point selected. If you don't have that, I would recommend doing that if you're trying to follow along. And we're going to go ahead and turn on our Smart Guides. And the Smart Guides, you can see how I was moving these around before, nothing was really happening. But if I move them now, kind of like if you've ever worked with PowerPoint, it snaps the edges or the center of your pictures to to places on the artboard or each other, which is very, very useful for when you're drawing vectors, in my opinion. Now, you can go more in detail. You can set up a grid system if you're really picky about these things. But for now, since this is a tutorial for complete beginners, I don't want to overwhelm you. We're just going to go ahead and move on with just the Smart Guides and Snap to Point selected. Alright, now, very, very important, your layers. Always, always need multiple layers when drawing vectors, or pretty much any kind of art, graphic art on the computer. You want to have as many layers as possible. You'll hear that from other people as well, and I am telling you, you need layers. Alright, so all of our pictures we have here are already on layer 1, this generic layer it gives you. To create a new layer, you're going to go down here to the one without the arrow. This is a sub layer. This is just our regular layer. Hovering over it says create new layer. It's a miracle. I'm going to go ahead and just going to create probably 4 more for now. We'll probably make more, but layer 1, I'm going to go ahead and rename these to, double clicking by the way. Just say pictures. Pictures, click off, and it renames the layer as pictures. It's a helpful reminder for you. And before we even do anything else, this little empty box right next to the eye symbol you have here, which is visibility, you have lock. Locking this layer prevents me from doing anything with it at all. You can still see it, but you can't edit it, you can't mess with it, and that is what we want because we don't want to be drawing our vector on top of our picture and then accidentally move it, and it's a mess. You don't want to have to worry about that. So lock that original layer that you have your reference picture on. Also notice we can toggle the visibility, on and off, which will help with our drawing later. So before we talk your head off too much, let's go ahead and rename our other layers. I know for a fact I'm going to want one called body, if I can spell. Body fill. I'm going to do tail. And main. I'm going to go ahead and make another one here. So notice in a second here, I'm going to name this main fill. To rearrange your layers, you can just simply click, make sure it's highlighted in this kind of gray blue, and you can just click and drag, and that little white line you see there is showing up to show you where it's going in the order of your layers. Pretty straightforward. If you see it in gray like this, that means you're going to be putting it as a sub-layer into that other layer. So if I do that, oops, accidentally, you can see main fill is now a sub-layer of body. Since I don't want that, I can click and I can actually drag and take it out of that. And now we have main fill outside of body. Main fill, body fill, tail. Let's do one more. I'm going to call this one eyes, because I usually put them on a separate layer. We'll move that there. Alright, so now we have all of that set up nice and dandy. And you can notice each of these layers are different colors. And we'll probably mess with that later, because sometimes your colors will be matched too closely to the pony you're drawing and you'll want to change the color of your layer. But we won't worry about that until later when we actually need to change it. So now you pretty much have everything set up that you need to for now. You have your reference pictures, or reference picture if you're only using one, which is going to be this one for now. Again, zooming in using Alt scroll wheel. And then we have multiple layers set up and our reference pictures locked so we can't edit them accidentally. So that is the end of our part 1. I know we haven't even begun drawing yet, but this is all very important for setting up to draw your first vector. So I hope you enjoyed this video, or at least it taught you something new. If not, then just go ahead and fast forward to whatever section you need to actually begin learning things. Thank you for your time, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.